Hello, and welcome to Motorcycle News. Welcome to Seville, and welcome to Honda's new 2023 CL500. Now the CL is Honda's 5th addition to their 500 range, and it joins the CBR 500R, the fully faired one, the CB500X adventure bike, the CB500F naked, and the Honda CMX 500 Rebel. And the Rebel is the one that this sort of shares the most parts with. So the CL gets the same mainframe as the Rebel, and it gets the sort of similar state of tune as well. So the differences between the CL and the Rebel are sort of mainly towards the rear of the bike. So it's got a new subframe for starters. It's also got a new swing arm as well. Now both of those are specific to the CL to give it a little bit more strength at that rear end and obviously help it to look less like a really low cruiser. As well as that, there's also an added tooth on the rear sprocket as well to give it a little bit more extra pep, a little bit more acceleration at low speeds. Now on top of that, we've also got some other tweaks to the motor, so I'm going to go into that now. So as I said before, the motor's a 471cc Euro 5 compliant parallel twin, and what Honda have done for the CL is sort of play with the air intake, and they've also given it a new high-rise exhaust. Now that exhaust, as is the rest of the bike's looks, is designed to mimic the early Honda CLs of the 1960s and the 1970s. Now that's a twin exit unit, obviously all fully Euro 5, so all packed full of catalytic converters and all of that nonsense. And it makes a really nice sort of burble when you're cruising around town. What I will say though is it's kind of lost anywhere above 40 miles per hour. And that's unfortunate really, because this is a scrambler. It's supposed to have that scrambler character, but the CL's very refined, as you would expect from a Honda. So there's sort of minimal vibes from the engine as well. It's sort of sewing machine smooth and sort of sewing machine quiet a lot of the time, unfortunately. And whilst that's really nice around town and there's no drama for new riders, I'd personally like a little bit more character, a bit more sort of vibration. I want to know it's on, I want to know it's sort of rumbling beneath me, being that scrambler. Now the other key change for this one, as I said, was the air intake system. So this has got a specific air intake away from the Rebel, and what Honda have done is basically helped the throttle response, which is a tad jerky on that Rebel, and it's much better on the CL. We spent loads of time today in the scorching city centre of Seville, and the fueling was really, really nice. There's no sort of on-off switch acceleration and jerkiness. Honda are also saying that there's a bit more acceleration and a bit more torque at the bottom end, but I'd be lying if I said that I could feel that, to be honest. You know, this is a circa 46 brake horsepower parallel twin engine, which is compliant for A2 licence laws without restriction. It needs to be worked hard, basically. You know, more than enough power there to get off the line first at the traffic lights, but if you want to take it out of town and do overtakes and stuff like that, you have to work the gearbox, you have to work the engine, and you have to rev it hard. So away from the motor and the performance, I want to talk about the handling of the CL, because it's one of its party pieces, one of the best bits about the bike. The biggest compliment that I can give the CL is it's a bike that you get on and you're instantly familiar with. There's a real gentle reach to the handlebars, all the controls are really light, and it handles and it stops and, you know, behaves exactly as you would expect a motorbike to behave. It's sort of Honda aiming this at new riders, at novices, as well as experienced riders, and this really does, you know, tick those boxes. If you're a new rider and you want a sort of 70s style retro, I think the handling of this bike would really, really play into your hands. Now, providing that handling setup is a 19-inch front wheel, being a scrambler, for a little bit of off-roady type presence, and we've got a 17 at the back. We've also got 41mm non-adjustable forks with some nice rubber gaiters on them as standard, and we've got some twin shocks at the back to give it a little bit more of that retro feel. Now those twin shocks are adjustable for preload. You've got 5 stages of adjustable preload on there. I weigh about 10 stone, sort of fully wet through. I didn't really need to make any changes. The bike is quite soft as standard. You can feel the front working, you can feel the back end working, and when you're riding hard, you can feel it sort of moving around, but it's not moving around badly. There is a bit of a dive on the front end when you brake, and there is a little bit of squat at the back, but it's a good amount of travel to have. It's not tying itself up in knots, you're just aware of the bike working with the good diamond chassis in the middle. Providing the braking up front is a single twin piston caliper, and at the rear we've got a single piston caliper. Now, on the face of it, not that powerful. However, the bike weighs 192 kilograms all in, only makes 47 horsepower, as I said. There's more than enough performance there. And actually, I would say it's one of the better performing of the 500 range. One of my criticisms of the Rebel, the sister bike to this, is that there really isn't much front brake feel, whereas there's loads on the CL. And whilst it's got ABS at the front and the rear to help with new riders and get it through Euro 5, it never really kicks in. It's only when you're being really ham-fisted and you know, being mean to the poor little thing that the ABS kicks in. But outside of that, it just kind of leaves you to get on with it. Of course, being a Honda as well, if you do give it a big squeeze of lever, you do get a flashing of the hazards, which I think is a bit of a gimmick, to be honest. You know, you can see it working when you're following other Hondas around.
That softer suspension is also useful when you fancy tackling some light scrambling, with 150mm of movement up front and 145mm of travel at the rear. Our test route included a couple of kilometres of dusty fire track, and it was more than capable of spinning a wheel and soaking up the cobbles, obviously aided by that 19-inch front wheel. It's far from a true adventurer though, with 155mm of ground clearance and no bash plate to protect its blacked out exhaust headers. That rear ABS also can't be switched off, which may deter some more serious adventurers.
So away from the handling then, I just want to talk about some of the tech gubbins that you get on the CL. Now obviously I talked about the indicators flashing up when you give it a handful of brake or give a big old stamp on the rear. Those indicators, in fact all of the lights all the way round are full LED, which is a really nice touch on a bike that has a launch price in 2023 of £5,999. I don't think that's bad at all. Outside of that, you're not getting any rider aids, you're not getting any different throttle maps or anything like that. It doesn't need it. It would have been pointless if they added it. It would have just been additional weight for no good reason. What you do get though is a single unit LCD display. Now this can be found on the Rebel already, and it's sort of nicely in keeping with the rest of the front end of the bike, you know, that nice minimalist look. Unfortunately, I do think it does sort of let the bike down a little bit. In the scorching midday sun, the really intense Spanish sun, it was hard to read that dash. I mean, Honda did make a point in the presentation of saying that you could read this in all light conditions. I'm afraid you can't. And actually, I've lived for a couple of weeks with the Rebel in the UK in a drizzly English winter, and when it really rains hard as well, it's hard to read that dash. So when you're back home away from this lovely location, you are going to find a few struggles with that. I mean, outside of that, you get lots of nice details, but you don't get a rev counter, which could be annoying for some people. I don't really think it's the end of the world. You can kind of work out when you need to change gear, but that might be a downside for some. Away from that, just want to talk briefly about the switchgear and the levers. So that both are really light, those levers, which helps with the whole new rider thing. And, you know, when you're negotiating traffic, there's no clutch ache or anything like that. And the actual switchgear as well has a real nice click to it. It's like sort of Fisher-Price switchgear. It feels like it's going to stand the test of time and is sort of real idiot-proof and isn't going to break, which is really, really nice. While I'm talking about the front end, I will just touch on the mirrors as well. Lots of nice visibility, but because they're quite close to you on the bike, you do lose a lot of the sort of vision that's going on here. You can see sort of directly over your shoulder, but if someone's sort of just riding here, you do have quite a big blind spot with these. So you're sort of forever doing lifesaver checks, which, you know, you should be doing those anyway, but you just need to do a few more on this one. Honda have gone to town with the amount of customization that you can do with the CL, and this bike here is dressed in some of those options. Now, Honda give you the option of 3 accessory packs, or you can kind of mix and match some of the options. So this is a bit of a mix and matcher. So this is an option, this brown seat, as are these white handguards, as is this little piece of bodywork here, and these adventure style foot pegs as well. Now, I'll start with the seat because it adds 30mm to the seat height. So it comes as 790mm as standard. This brings it up to 820, but it is narrower, so it doesn't really affect your ability to touch the floor. What it does do is kind of take you away from the riding experience a little bit. Your bum to bike contact is reduced because you've got this thicker seat, and you lose any of those minimalist vibrations, and it sort of just detracts from that sort of authentic scrambler feel a little bit more, unfortunately. Also, doesn't quite seat properly, if you pardon the pun. So if you can hear, there is a bit of movement as well, which you can feel moving from side to side when you're moving around the bike, when you're riding spiritedly. Outside of that, the bodywork looks nice. It keeps the wind off of you really nicely, that little cowling, but it is all only available in white at the moment. So, you know, you can get a blue bike, you can get an orange bike, you can get an earthy colour and a black one, but if you want these pieces of bodywork, they're all going to be white. So, you know, whether that's your cup of tea or not, I'll leave that up to you. My only other criticism of the bike actually comes from these optional foot pegs, which obviously have no rubbers in because they're sort of adventure style off-road pegs. They look the part, they grip your boots really nicely, but they take away some of the vibration damping. So when you're riding at motorway speeds, you get a real noticeable sort of vibe through the bottom of your feet. That's fine on short journeys, but we did a sort of an hour's blast back into the centre of town and I had a real tingle in my feet after that, and just an ever so slight annoyance, which I would prefer not to have had. And actually, you know, this bike isn't designed for full off-road, so I don't really think you need grippy metal off-road foot pegs on a bike like this anyway. Outside of that, there are options for luggage. You can't get a pannier on this side because of the big old exhaust, but you can get one on this side. You can also get a bag if you want to sort of do a bit of commuting to and from the office. So I think that is a fair enough roundup of the CL500. Overall, it's a real easy to ride, gentle scrambler that's a real nice addition to that Honda 500 lineup. There are a few little criticisms like that dash, like the mirrors, but overall, you know, it's a doddle to ride. It's really simple, it's really comfortable, and if I was going to buy one, I'd perhaps do without the off-road pegs and the brown seat. So that's all from me here. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did enjoy it, please remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers, guys.